owner Tsai deciding officially, if you can read the tweet here, that our front office and coaching staff have my support. We will make decisions in the best interest of the Brooklyn Nets. So I think, as you guys can clearly see here by his tweets, he has officially struck the first strike in the Kevin Durant versus Steve Nash and Sean Marks saga by officially saying that he is backing those two people. This is a very interesting situation as we continue to read here. The Tsai and Durant recently met in London. ESPN sources confirmed, and Durant reiterated his desire to be traded. It's just the franchise needed to choose between him and Coach Steve Nash and General Sean Marks. Durant initially asked to be traded on June 30th and hasn't backed off that request. At 33 years old, Durant has 4 years, $198 million left on his contract, which means Brooklyn can be patient in waiting out teams for a kind of return in what they believe will eventually emerge for a star player reaching the trade market in his prime. The meeting between Durant and Tsai was first reported by The Athletic, of course, also noting that on the one-year anniversary of Kevin Durant signing his extension, Durant, along with Kyrie Irving and DeAndre Jordan, joined the Nets that summer after Marks and then coach Kenny Atkinson helped lead the franchise out of the doldrums and to a surprising postseason berth. Since then, nothing has gone the way the Nets planned. We know that Durant sat out the 2019-2020 season while recovering from an Achilles tendon tear. Jordan was traded. Nash was hired to replace Atkinson. Harden had come and gone, and Ben Simmons has yet to make his NBA debut. And we know we can continue reading the story. We can continue to reiterate our points each and every time. Pete and I have talked about this ad nauseum. I think you guys are tired of it. I'm tired of it. But the one thing that's actually kind of interesting right now is actually the fact that another team has emerged as a contender for Kevin Durant, and that is the 76ers. And this is what the article goes on to say for this next one. Kevin Durant has interest in being traded to Boston Celtics or the 76ers. Sources tell Ian Begley of SNY.TV. Durant was previously focused on the Phoenix Suns and Miami Heat, who were each likely lack the assets necessary to trade him. The Celtics and the Brooklyn Nets have engaged in trade talks last month, obviously around Jaylen Brown. We've already discussed this ad nauseum. The Nets have sought the inclusion of Marcus Smart, who Durant would like to play for if he's traded to the Celtics. So I don't know if that's necessarily going to be a trade that happens. Brown has, obviously had the best Brown has been the single best player offered to the Nets in a trade for Durant. The Sixers would have to include Maxey in a trade for Durant, along with some combination of Tobias Harris, Matisse Thybulle, and other assets. The 76ers have already sent a number of their assets to the Nets as part of the James Harden trade. This is what I think is very interesting when it comes to talking about the Brooklyn Nets in this sort of situation here. I think, thinking about the whole thing, I do think that the 76ers probably have the best package for Kevin Durant. If we really think about the players that they can offer and the players that they're able to kind of put out there, you think about a guy like Tyrese Maxey, a young point guard, a young player that could potentially be a star player in this league. So that's something that you could get back in return if you're the Brooklyn Nets. You get Tobias Harris, who again is a big contract that you could potentially trade or create that cap space. And then Matisse Thybulle, obviously a young, great defender, obviously playing in the Seattle area. So I'm going to be biased in that perspective, but Matisse Thybulle is a great on-ball defender. So I think that having him on your team is absolutely beautiful. Sean, why does Durant want to play with Harden? Because I don't think, and this is what I wanted to talk about, and I kind of nerdishly kind of practiced this, kind of thinking about it in the car as I was on my way to work out, and really, while I was doing my workout, I was really thinking about it. Here's what I'll say. And let me just turn on my fan really quick just because it gets so hot in here. The reason why I think that Kevin Durant decided to, or is thinking about going back to James Harden, is because I want you to think about this, Sean. There are certain people in your life that you may or may not choose to do business with. You think about some of your friends, some of your family members, and think about the times where they have come up with an idea and said, hey, this sounds like a great idea, let's do it. And knowing the history that you do now of a certain player or of a certain person, you kind of understand where you should go and where you shouldn't go to do those type of things. So, for example, I know that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are best friends. Like, they clearly hit the ground running. They respect each other as teammates. They respect each other as players. And there's going to be times where friendships have to stay friendships, and business partners can become friendships, or friendships can become business partners, but only if you know the person that well. There's a reason why there's a lot of times where you have people say, never go into business with your family or friends, because there's times where you let things that they do slide. So, for example, maybe Kevin Durant let some of the stuff that Kyrie Irving did the last couple seasons, he let it slide. He didn't say anything about it. But as Kevin Durant started thinking about it, as he signed that extension, as he is now 1 year into it, thinking about it as he enters it in, you can clearly see that he probably regrets taking that contract and regrets kind of moving to Brooklyn because of the way that he knows Kyrie Irving is as a ball player. Again, nothing personal with Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving is maybe to him he's a great guy. Maybe to him he's one of his best friends. But when it comes to business, business doesn't care about friendship. All it cares about is results. And if you can't produce the results on the court, if you can't produce the results in the business, if you can't produce the results anywhere that shows growth and maturity like Kevin Durant probably wants from a guy like Kyrie Irving, then what is the point of going into business with that person if all you're going to do is complain, if all you're going to do is, in your mind think, man, I really should have not signed this contract here in Brooklyn and should have just went to the New York Knicks? Because originally that's where Kevin Durant was going to go. He was going to go play for the Knicks. He was going to be happy there. And then Kyrie Irving said, you know what, let's change the direction. Let's go somewhere else. And I think that's where, in my opinion, this sort of notion of Durant wanting to go with Harden is because Kevin Durant knows what he gets with Harden. He knows that by playing with Harden, he knows what he gets. He understands understands James Harden as a person. Like, maybe they're not the best of friends, maybe they're good friends, but maybe they're not the best of friends like Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant are. But if you know that Harden will continuously kind of give some sort of an effort. Again, my concern about James Harden has been the quitting on two teams, so that might be a different conversation for a different day. But again, if you look at the situation at hand, Kevin Durant looks like he trusts James Harden a lot more than he does Kyrie Irving. And again, this is all just rumors. This is all just speculation. None of this could be true. I'm just kind of stating a hypothesis out there. And kind of a forewarning to Kevin Durant. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. But at the same time, if your grass is completely yellow and it's dry and it's dead, sometimes you do have to move on to greener pastures to see if you can't resuscitate some sort of career or some sort of resurgence back into the playoffs. Again, after two, I would say, disappointing years for the Brooklyn Nets and probably 2 disappointing years for Kevin Durant in the playoffs, he wants to go to the finals again. And if you look at the team constructed in Philadelphia, if you have James Harden, Joel Embiid, and Kevin Durant on the same team, that team is going to be pretty freaking good. Like, you're not going to be beating those teams. Yes, the depth might be a little off. You might be concerned a little bit. I'm concerned with Doc Rivers as a head coach. I don't know if he's necessarily the right guy to kind of lead these three guys to a playoff win or even a NBA Final Series win. But at the same time, if they feel like they can play together, then maybe it's worth giving it a shot. The question, like I said, becomes now, what happens to the relationship between Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant? Because from all accounts, from what we learned from when Kevin Durant moved from the Golden State Warriors to the Brooklyn Nets, to the Brooklyn Nets, was that he was friends with Kyrie Irving and he wanted to go play with this friend. But look where it got him when he did play with this friend. He wasn't playing on the best team. He wasn't playing the best brand of basketball. And certainly this last year, with all the injuries, the missing games from Kyrie Irving, the recovering from injuries, the lack of offensive, I would say, plays and kind of situations to get Kevin Durant the best looks, you can clearly see that this Brooklyn Nets team is out of its depth. And Sean, let me know if I'm right or wrong on that, but I really do feel like this is kind of what happened here for Kevin Durant, is that he realized that he cannot longer play with Kyrie Irving, his best friend, because he doesn't trust Kyrie Irving to do the right thing at the end of the day. Because I think the only one that can really hold Kyrie Irving accountable is LeBron James. For whatever reason, LeBron James has that power. Maybe because he's done it before for such a long time. But I do think that Kevin Durant just cannot be upfront and honest with Kyrie Irving as a friend and maybe as a teammate to say, hey, we need you to play a lot better. We need you to do these things for us because in order for us to be a really successful team, we need you here. We need you to do the things that we need. But I don't know if Kevin Durant can say those things to Kyrie Irving's face. And that's the tough part sometimes about going into business with your family, going into business with your friends. There's going to be times in awkward situations where you would do that. But let's see here, Sean. You said, I wouldn't want to play with Kyrie or Harden, but I guess Embiid and KD can win a chip. I think that's really what it is. I mean, when you think about Kevin Durant and Joel Embiid, they would be the biggest trolls on Twitter. I cannot imagine the Twitter banter from those two players to the average 9-to-5 Joe. It's going to be actually pretty funny when they go at it during the regular season with maybe not one another, but maybe with some 9-to-5 guys. Maybe they're going to do a Twitter session, a Q&A, or a Twitter space to these 9-to-5 guys who keep talking trash about them. My only concern there is that Joel Embiid has had a continuous history of being injured all the time. So personally, in my opinion, that is the biggest concern for Kevin Durant moving to Philadelphia. Because clearly you can see each and every year, Joel Embiid, every time the playoffs come around, he gets hurt. And it's not a fun thing to play with if you're the only star player with you and James Harden. And again, this isn't the same James Harden that it was 5 or 6 years ago. This is the James Harden now that is a little bit older, more of a playmaker, not really much of a scorer at this point in his career. Again, not saying that he can't do that stuff, but if we really think about his play style when he played for the Nets and even when he played for Philadelphia, it wasn't what it once was. And I think it's because of the fact that the rule changes have affected him and many other, I would say probably majority of the way that they don't call those fouls anymore that Harden was getting away with back in the Houston days. And so with that being the case, James Harden isn't going to necessarily be an effective scorer. He's going to be, or even effective or efficient scorer. You need someone to be efficient. And if it's just going to be solely Kevin Durant, that's going to be bad news bears for the 76ers moving forward. And just like I said before, Kevin Durant needs to understand that when he does go to play in 76ers, there's no more excuses. There's no more anything else. You have to win the championship. You instantly become the title contender favorites if he ends up on that team. I don't want to hear anything about it. The Bucks can do all they can, but so far all they have is Giannis and Drew Holiday and Middleton. And, those two guys are getting a lot older while Giannis is still in his prime. So that, to me, is the reason why I think when I look at everything, maybe this is the right move for Kevin Durant to go to 76ers. The question now becomes, if you're the Brooklyn Nets, is that the trade that you want, right? Is going to Brooklyn a better alternative than going to Boston? Some people might say yes. Some people might say no. In terms of what value you would get back in return, like which one would you want? Well, let me ask you guys. I mean, what would you rather? Would you rather get Jaylen Brown or would you rather get Tyrese Maxey coming back? Again, the Brooklyn Nets are not going to be competitive in the near future if both Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant go. They're going to clearly be in a rebuild situation. They're going to be really trying to get some young guys and kind of do this whole process all over again, if you think about it. It is a very funny thing to think about where a couple years ago, the Brooklyn Nets were in that same situation where they had a young team, an up-and-coming, surprising team, made the playoffs like we read in the previous article with Tasai. And then all of a sudden, it becomes a situation where they got rid of most of those assets. They brought in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And in 1 year, they're gone. And I just think that is if I'm the Brooklyn Nets, I'm probably pretty frustrated. If I'm Tasai, I'm probably frustrated because I basically sacrificed everything for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving to come here, do whatever they want, get the head coach they want, get the players they want, for them just to leave and leave the mess. I will still reiterate my points with Kevin Durant. While I do think that going to Philadelphia would be the best move for his career in terms of trying to win a championship, the point remains for me that we cannot allow these superstars, maybe not allow these superstars, but we can't be celebrating the fact that Kevin Durant is moving to another team after he made a mess in Brooklyn. And that's where, to me, I get frustrated with players, like I said, like James Harden, like Kevin Durant, like Ben Simmons, because I felt like they kind of excuse their way out of situations instead of owning up to the mistakes, or maybe just, living with the results that they have. And to me, that's where the frustrating part of this whole thing comes into for me. Because again, I respect Kevin Durant as a basketball player. I think he's one of the best to do it in the game. Do I respect kind of the decisions and the way that he did it? No. Personally, as a fan of basketball, I don't necessarily like the way that he did it. And again, maybe some of you guys like the way that he left or is leaving this situation here in Brooklyn, but I don't like it one bit. There's a reason why I never got mad at Kevin Durant for leaving from OKC to the Warriors. Because at the end of the day, when you really get older and you mature more, you want to do the best for your situation, right? And Kevin Durant felt that going to the Warriors was the best situation, but he did it after his contract. Same thing when he left the Warriors. He didn't start doing all this stuff in year 2 of the contract. He did it after the years he was done. Then he decided to leave to go to Brooklyn. Now he's doing the James Harden route. Now he's doing these other avenues to get out of this contract, to get out of playing in Brooklyn. But you need to lie in the bed that you sleep in. You cannot make a mess and then say, well, I don't want to deal with it anymore. But this is your mess. This is what you created. This is what you said on Instagram Live with Kyrie Irving years ago, or 2 years ago. Or maybe it was 2 years ago. Saying that you don't need a coach. You are the coaches. Saying that we can win a championship. Saying that this is your team. You and Kyrie Irving's team. How can I, as a fan of the game, and how can anybody being a fan of the Brooklyn Nets be happy with the fact that Kevin Durant is continuing to do this? Continuing to make excuses, continuing to demand a trade request within 1 year of your contract extension. I can't get behind that. I can't. Because I don't think that it's necessarily fair, not only to the fans, but to your own teammates. Think about your teammates that you were kind of leaving behind because this is the way that you want it to be. You want it to go the way that you want it to go, not necessarily the way that it should go. And to me, like when I see that from Kevin Durant, that's where I personally get a little bit frustrated with him as a basketball player, because I think he could be one of the best players to ever play the game. But it's the continuous of just this whole thing is leaving a sour taste in my mouth. And it just kind of, again, it stems from the James Harden situation where he got fat and left Houston. He wasn't happy in Brooklyn and got out of Brooklyn. We cannot continue to reward players who are just saying, I'm not happy and want to leave. Because that's not the way that things should be done here in the NBA. You need to teach the young guys that, yeah, you can take your lumps and bruises, and maybe those lumps and bruises tell you, hey, I don't want to play here. Once my contract's done, I'm out. But to see that Kevin Durant has continuously gone the way that he does, from Brooklyn to wanting to leave to go to Philadelphia, or even the Celtics. Like I'm as a Celtics fan, like, yes, bring on Kevin Durant. He'd be such a great player for us. But I wouldn't like the circumstance as to how we did it, right? This is kind of one of those things you look at it and you're just thinking, why would I do that? Why would I be happy for the Celtics to bring in a guy who is just, willing to quit on his team whenever? I can't get behind that. And maybe some of you guys can. Maybe some of our Boston Celtics fans in the chat, or, maybe a fan of a different team can be okay with that. I personally cannot be. Because I think as we continue to monitor the situation, as we continue to look at what Kevin Durant decides to do, what Kyrie Irving decides to do, I can't get behind the fact that you were 1 year into your deal and are deciding to quit this. Again, I might be an old head. I might be looked at as a loser. I don't care what the perception of me is, but we cannot allow this to happen for the league's sake. Because I think that this kind of this taints the product a little bit. And I talked about it before in a previous stream, and I will continue to kind of be a little bit more upfront about it, because I do think that this stuff does affect fans and does affect people who are willing to spend the money on League Pass, who are willing to spend the money at the season ticket, like all that stuff. You know, what's the point of me being a fan of the Brooklyn Nets or a fan of, yeah, let's say the Brooklyn Nets, you know, a team that went from New Jersey, which I know a lot of people call the pit, to now coming to Brooklyn, where it's supposed to be more hip, it's supposed to be more cool, a little bit gentrified, in my opinion. They gentrified definitely the Brooklyn area. Excuse me. And then all of a sudden, you go to Brooklyn. It's like, okay, sweet. My team finally has the location is good, the area that it's in is good, and then all of a sudden, your best player wants to leave after 1 year or 2 years that it happened. Again, I'm not pro owner. I will never be pro owner. I will never be pro player. I will always be fence sitter. I will always sit on the fence. And you can call me a fence sitter. You can call me guy in the middle all the time, or whatever you want to call me. But I do think that there needs to be a balance between both of them. You cannot have one over the other, because then it becomes a situation where, why would I want to sign a guy for 4 to 5 years if you're just going to leave after 1 year? I would much rather you sign a 1 year contract. Let's see what happens and then move on. Again, I could be wrong. And so I want to let you guys know in the comment section, or let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of this whole situation? Are you guys a fan of it? Are you guys not a fan of it? Because like I said, I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. This is, again, a more telling sign as well to kind of go back to the point that I was bringing up earlier. And I just think I need to bring it back again, because this will probably be on TikTok. This will probably be, I'll probably post this on TikTok and Instagram Reel. When you are going into business or anything with your best friend, make sure that you guys are on the same page before you do anything. I felt like these two guys, both Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, were not on the same page when it came to that stuff. And it's kind of the reason why I think Kevin Durant realized that he could no longer rely on Kyrie Irving to be that guy on the team if he decides to go there. You see Ben Simmons left the group chat when the Nets asked him. I did see that. Sean, I did see that. I don't know if it's necessarily true. I think that's just a lot of, it's probably just a lot of Ben Simmons haters. Probably like a lot of Brooklyn Nets kind of opportunists that are just trying to create a story there. May or may not be true. I think Ben Simmons said something about a slow news day. It is what it is. I don't think it's necessarily that big of a deal. Again, we could talk about the Ben Simmons stuff ad nauseum. I have plenty of videos back in my catalog if you guys want to really know what I think about the whole Brooklyn Nets situation with Ben Simmons. But again, you know, it's just kind of one of those things. Be careful who you go into business with. Be careful who you go into doing projects with, because you want to make sure that both of you guys, like I said, are on the same page. You're aligned on the same deals, because it becomes frustrating when you want something so bad. Like, I'm sure Kevin Durant really wants a freaking championship so bad. I don't blame him. I would want a championship too. But when you have a guy like Kyrie Irving, who is kind of his own guy, an artist, a guy that lives by his own set of rules, doesn't, you know, is more about him than he is the team. And that's fine. You're going to have people that are not always about the team. You always have to have a little bit of selfishness when it comes to this game, because again, you make so much money. You want to make as much money as you can. I never blame anybody for that. But if you're Kevin Durant, I think the 76ers align more with what you want to do as a basketball player than what the Brooklyn Nets and you and Kyrie Irving do as a basketball player. Because Kyrie Irving has a completely different set of kind of thinking process, to where I think he doesn't really think about the championships anymore. I think Kevin Durant does. Kyrie Irving, I don't think not so much. And Kyrie Irving has talked about it before previously about retiring younger than he is. And I think Kevin Durant has too. And if Kevin Durant is seriously thinking about it at, you know, age 33 years old, probably has a couple more years left in this league, he has to really decide and think, what is the best process for me to continue? Like, do I continue to play this game until I'm almost 40, like LeBron James has, or do I retire early? But if I want to retire early, I have to win another ring. And I think he wants to do this for himself, because I think, even though he says that it doesn't affect him mentally, I think the fact that he only won those championships with those Golden State Warriors team does weigh on him, in a sense where he wants to see if he can do it on his own. And I think he does want to do it on his own. I think he does want to battle it out. But in order to do that, he has to leave Brooklyn. And again, I'm not happy about that at all, because I think that he should really stay and honor the contract. And again, it might go both ways, right? Because the owners could decide after 1 year, I'm just going to get rid of him as a basketball player. But at the same time, I do think that when it comes to Kevin Durant, he wants to win another championship. Go to Brooklyn. Sorry, go to Philadelphia, win that championship with Joel Embiid and James Harden. And, Kyrie Irving, if he decides to be a Laker, LeBron James will have another great player with him. And maybe we might see the Brooklyn Nets and the LA Lakers in the NBA Finals. But nevertheless, that is it for this topic. Let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys make of this Brooklyn Nets situation as we continue to monitor and see what is going on in Brooklyn, what is going on in Philadelphia, and are the Celtics still in the hunt for Kevin Durant? Let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of this story as we continue to move on to a new topic?